Greetings, magical mages and spiritual sages. I am here today with Age of the Mage, and we're on podcast episode 30. I have a couple stories to share with you today and some exercises that go along with these stories so we can keep improving and working on our magical and spiritual skills, because I believe we're really going to need them, if not now, in the very near future. They're always helpful to have, but we are facing some unique times in our world, and I think they're going to become even more valuable in the coming days. So a story I want to start out with happened when many years ago, when my son John, who's now grown and helping with the Modern Masters project and all of our things we're doing, was a very little boy. He was about 3. And I had become very ill. I don't remember right now the details of what I had, possibly just a flu, something like that. And he knew I was struggling, and he knew I felt awful. And he was such a little guy, and he always had such a natural empathy and a very strong interest in healing. So this was natural for him to feel that way, of course, but still, he was so little. And one night, I was suffering a lot, and we got him to bed, and I had a rough night. And in the morning, he raced in and he said, "Mom, don't worry, you're going to be all better soon." And I said, "Really? And why is that?" And he said, "Because I put a orange ball of healing energy into your body last night, and it's going to heal you." This was pretty interesting to me, because at that time I had really never worked with such a concept myself, so I hadn't shared anything like that with him. And he was so little, he wasn't reading yet, and so I didn't know exactly where this idea came to him from. But it was, of course, now I realize how these things are in our soul and how they're a part of us all from all the beginning. And so he drew this knowledge out of himself. And sure enough, of course, I did get better. But this is not so much to talk about, the effects of what happened, but the idea that he kind of intuitively had a strong sense of what to do. And what the components were is what we're going to talk about today: the color and the etheric ball. So what we want to do is start playing around with these sensory things we can feel in the real world, things we can hear, smell, see, touch, taste, these kinds of sensory inputs. And we want to bring those inputs up into our imagination. So when we visualize something and we put it into our etheric space that we're building up, we can give those traits to those things, and they become much more holistic and much more real in the etheric space. And when that happens, for manifestation purposes, for example, those things come back to us in much more real forms, the more attributes we can give to them in that space. So we're going to practice this, and it's funny because this is such an easy thing to do. It sounds very simple and it doesn't take much time, but it's critical to our visualization and imagination exercise. It's critical to building up those muscles and getting them in tone, and being able to do this on demand, just instantaneously. So the more practice we do, the better these abilities get. So what we're going to do is work with color. And this only, as I say, this only needs to take a few seconds every day for a few times a day. That's one way to do it. We'll talk about another way. But what we're going to do is we're going to imagine an etheric ball, kind of a sphere shape, just in your mind's eye, just whatever comes to you. It could be a ball of gas, it could be a ball of glass, it could be a ball of metal, it could be a ball of netting, it can be fabric, it can be nebulous, it can be anything at all. It could be made up of anything. But just close your eyes and quickly see this ball, this sphere shape. All right, now we're going to give it a color. We want to infuse color into it. And the choice is yours. What you want to do too is when that color moves into that ball, whatever color you've chosen, you want to ask yourselves about that color. How does it make you feel? become more attuned to how colors affect you. Do they affect you emotionally? Do they bring back memories? Do they bring up other things like smells and tastes? When you say, I'm going to think of red, does it appear as like a blob of red in your mind, or does it appear as an apple, something that is red? When you think of red, is it always the same tone of red? Is it always a deep red? And does that bring with it certain connotations and certain feelings? So sometime you want to experiment with making yourself think of a bright red for a change. Think of a fire hydrant red instead of the deep blood red that you might normally associate. And so you kind of force yourself into ways you start to recognize ways that you relate to color. And we do it subconsciously. So what we're going to do is bring this to our conscious level and say, wow, I never realized that, but whenever I see that color red, I get angry. Oh, whenever I see that color red, I remember being a kid and picking cherries. Oh, whatever. You start linking, color starts to become more important to you because you're linking it to physical things that have happened to you or sensory inputs that you feel in the physical world. And these anchors that tie into the colors you choose will add additional traits to the color and infuse that ball, that etheric ball, with those traits. So you'll become much more, particular about the specific colors you use because you'll start to catch on that they mean certain things and they have things attached to them. So there's all kinds of blues, there's all kinds of greens. Not everyone is the same. And when you want to infuse this etheric ball with a certain color in order to do something with that ball, that color begins to matter. All right, so we are going to just practice and have fun with it. Right now, no outcomes have to be. You don't have to concentrate on any kind of outcome or any kind of manifestation. All this is to get us linking our feelings and our physical dimension with the etheric dimension and get us used to moving things back and forth between dimensions, moving feelings and sensations from the physical into the etheric through visualization, through imagination, and moving things back out of the etheric into the physical by the allowing of that to happen. So in the story I led with, John, for some reason, felt prompted to form this etheric orange ball. He sensed that was the energy I needed for my body. And he just imagined it as a child and let it go into me. And he sent his healing energy with it. Now, if I had had a different type of illness or a different need, he may have imagined a completely different color ball because he was probably in touch with his higher self and knew what to do, had a sense what color my body needed at that time, what kind of energetic healing had to be attached to the ball he was sending over to me. So as we get more in tune with how we feel about different colors and we get better at putting them onto our etheric ball, this is going to lead us to be able to infuse any tool, anything that we create in the etheric realm with the traits and characteristics we want to put onto those things. So this is a lead up to more complex work that we'll be doing very soon. But color is very important. Each color correlates with one of the chakras. Colors bring us all kinds of sensory input. So this is very vital to a beginning step. I want to share now. Now that's just laying the color onto the ball. Okay, second part of the exercise. I have another story, but we'll do the second part first. Now the next thing we're going to do, whenever it occurs to you that you want to try practicing this, is throwing the ball, moving it, pushing it, tossing it, however you prefer to see this. But you're just going to take a few seconds, really, and get that ball formed in your mind's eye and get it colored up how you want it and toss it out. Toss it out your window. Toss it into the ground. Now, I would caution because of the story I'm going to tell you. I would caution you to play around with this exercise in a safe environment. In other words, don't start out the practice by throwing that ball of energy into your refrigerator or something electrical. Don't begin by throwing it into a person because I'm going to tell you a story that I had no idea was going to happen, and it did. And so now it has become a cautionary tale. Yes, so one night I was playing around with this, and this a few years ago. And for all I knew, whenever I was doing this exercise, I didn't ever, I wasn't aware of, what it was doing. I wasn't getting major validations. I wasn't having strong feedback about the effects of it. And I wasn't practicing too often this particular exercise. But for some reason, one night, I just got in it came right into my mind. You need to throw a ball of white lightning right out your window. You just need to do it. And I had the strangest experience. It just happened so fast, and I got the idea, and I literally just saw myself. I was laying in my bedroom, and it had a big window to the side of my bed that faced onto my driveway at the time, and I just threw a ball. I just saw it in my mind, and I don't even remember. I might have moved my arm and hand, and I just threw a ball of white, kind of powerful electrical energy through that window. And to my surprise, my complete surprise, there was a loud crack sound. And I have little dogs, and they were in the room with me. And we all jumped up. And I thought, my goodness, what happened? That thing actually broke my window? So I went over and checked the window, and no, it had not broken the window. But in fact, prior to checking the window, I was sitting in bed thinking, oh, did it break my window? And I remembered that my car was parked right on the other side of the window. And it has windows too, right? So all of a sudden I got worried. Oh my goodness, did it go through my window and break that? And what did it do to my car? That's when I got up, checked the window, and there was no break. And the driveway was empty. And I remembered this was all in Arizona. And I remembered I had loaned my car to my son John, who had it in California. So I thought, oh, thank goodness I didn't hurt my window of my car. Thank goodness it didn't hurt the window of the house. But that was kind of a strange thing. So I got back into bed and thought, man, that really works, doesn't it? So the next morning, I got a call from John. It's very interesting. And he said, Mom, I'm really sorry to tell you this. I don't know how it happened. I said, what? And he said, well, he had to, where he was living in Los Angeles area, he had to park my car that he had borrowed. He had to park it on the street. So he didn't have his own driveway. And he said, well, Mom, there's a hole in your car window. I said, really? He said, yes. And I called the police, and they don't understand it. It's not a bullet hole, and it's not a big hole. It's a mystery to them what caused it, but I'm so sorry. And I guess you'll have to report it to your insurance, and we'll have to replace this window. So I know you can see where I'm going with this. I would use caution at where you toss your balls of lightning. Now, I can't say that this has ever occurred for me again. I seemed to slip into a zone that night where the feeling came over me to practice this, and I guess it just aligned with a particular energy that was surrounding me at the time, and that magic just shot right out of my hand. So I know this is possible. And I know many of you who might have strong affinities to this style of magic will probably go much further than I did with this, and will be able to control it and use it when you want to. But for now, whenever it occurs to me to try this exercise of throwing a ball around, an etheric ball, I always throw it into our back behind the hill behind us, so it won't hurt anything. So you use your own discernment on this, but I will say I had this personal experience that was quite enlightening and showed me that this definitely works, and it can cross from the etheric world into our physical world for sure. So that's why I would urge you to be careful, because sometimes what we are doing in the etheric astral planes is actually happening. It's very powerful and it really is happening, and we're just not aware of it. So we want to be careful a little bit as we build up our knowledge about these planes and how things will be working and how things operate, so that we don't accidentally bring harm to any objects or any people or any living things. So, but it is definitely something that we want to practice. We want to be good at using, because it has just a multitude of applications, and it can be used for healing, and it can be used so many ways. So another, just a little bit of an offshoot here is, instead of doing a ball, we're going to get to this, all kinds of things like this as we work our way through the different archetypes, magical archetypes and things. But you could practice with like a rod or a spear. If you have that warrior energy in you, feel free to, expand on this. Those of you that are healers or have healing instincts might want to stick with the ball and fill that up with healing energy and different colors that you feel at the time is appropriate, and practice. You could even practice putting it into plants. You can practice on yourself. You can practice on anyone that's willing, for heaven's sake. There's no harm in that. If someone has a broken arm or certain kinds of complaints that they're going through in their physical body, it won't harm them if your intentions are good, and feel free to practice there. But it does have energy attached to it, and it really has some power, as I witnessed firsthand and was quite stunned, because the car not being, I felt when I threw that ball, my brain still had that car sitting in my driveway. That my mental picture included the car. So even though the car was a couple states away from me, it didn't matter, because in the etheric plane and the etheric field, there is no space and time. Your intentions go right through any space and time. And that's another caution we want to be careful with, because there's far more power that we can generate there than we often realize. Right? We put so much faith in things we can see and touch, hear, that we forget how much power lies in our invisible realms that surround us, and what we can do with that. So again, want to be careful as we practice this, because for example, in the case I talked about, there was no time and space. That shot of energy went right through the window, right through my car window. So my brain still, had my car in my mind, and that's all that mattered. Right? So we want to progress here, and this is all I'm going to really go over today, because it's a fun exercise. Let me mention one more thing that will really heighten your abilities here, and that is with color again. If you're going through your day, you might choose a color that you just want to notice for the day. So this doesn't even involve meditation, really. It's just fine-tuning your discernment and your senses and your input and that kind of thing. And so choose a color for the day. Let's say it's blue. And you are giving yourself the assignment of noticing that color everywhere throughout the day. And you become more and more sensitive to how much blue is out there. And as you notice blue, a blue sky, a blue bird, a blue building, blue paint, as you notice the different hues and the different tones of blue, you just take a second and see, does that make you feel a certain way? Does a light, bright blue make you feel different from a deep, dark blue? So again, these are very, very quick things. But the point we're doing, the point of the whole series of exercises is for sensitivity, is for bringing what you normally do in the subconscious and unconscious realms, bringing that to your conscious, because that's what we're doing with magic all the time. We're blending consciousness with subconscious. We're blending visible with invisible. We're working in etheric fields the more and more we do with these things. And so when we heighten our sensitivity and we start understanding it, we're going to allow a much more rich experience to fill our consciousness. We're no longer going to just see blue. We're going to say, oh, that's that blue that makes me think of summer days. And all of a sudden, it has a much more holistic, richer meaning to it. And when you infuse a ball with that blue, that has all those feelings of summer days put into it, it becomes a completely different ball, doesn't it? Completely different cluster of energy. So this is highly important. It seems simple. They seem like little tiny, oh, what could that do for me type of exercises. Believe me, they add up and they become very powerful over time. I'll leave you with these exercises and stories for the day. I wish you the very best of days. And, I just want us all to experience magic all the time. It's just so fun. And when we're in that zone, our emotions, our vibrations are higher, our emotions are happier, everything's smoother. So that's what I'm wishing for all of us, that we find some points of magic and spirit and soul in our days today. Thank you so much for being with me, and I will return soon. Bye for now.